Hey guys, welcome back. Today is a good old-fashioned repot and chat. Kind of just on one topic, really. It's something that's been on my mind a lot. We did a video on this last year, me and Charmaine, the collab video. It's on my channel on how to manage a collection on a busy schedule. And it was just kind of like a just chit chat on a couch style. And I thought it'd be worth revisiting this topic now because it's been on my mind a lot. The topic of FOMO, especially surrounding the anthurium niche within the plant hobby. I really felt like the frenzy stage of the plant boom was behind us, but it really feels like there's like this second mini boom happening, and I get a lot of comments from people, and it almost always pertains to anthuriums on like just they want me to talk about this as a repot topic, and I feel like it's such a huge topic that it deserves its own video. And I wanted to kind of break it up into two kind of sections. So the first one is the FOMO, the shopping addictions, the hype, the feeling the need to own certain things to almost like participate in this hobby. And then the second part is the feeling of overwhelm sometimes we feel in this hobby when our collections get too big, when we feels like there's too much information, there's too many plants that we feel overwhelmed, like where do I even begin? I want everything, and then like feeling the stress and the financial burden that can cause. So I have so many thoughts, and I already set the expectation for myself that I'm not going to cover everything that I want to say. Otherwise, we're going to be here for like 6 hours. And maybe this is something that I should do with Charmaine as well as a follow-up to last year's video. But I started writing down notes on my thoughts, and I filled out 3 pages. After a certain point, I was like, this is too much. Like I'm trying to get everything, and there's no end in sight for all my thoughts. So I opened it up to Instagram, and you guys always come through. You guys sent me some good questions, your own comments on FOMO and overwhelm, some just general topics you want me to cover. So I'm gonna pull from that like kind of all throughout, and we're just gonna repot some plants. So this is just my perspective on the hobby, my perspective on collecting, and kind of my experience, because I see people going through some of the same journey that I went through a few years ago, just getting into anthuriums now. So my hope is that this can kind of bring some perspective to people, that you're not alone in a lot of the things that you're feeling, and also maybe just give you some of like my experience navigating the hobby, spending way too much money in this hobby, and getting to my collection to the way it is now. So I'm going to show you what we're going to be repotting, and then we're going to get to work. I pulled 2, 3, 7 anthuriums. I don't know if it's enough, but also I might have to split this up into 2 parts because this day really got away from me. It's almost 6 o'clock. I'm starving. I ordered food, and when the food comes, I'm leaving. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go. So I really hope that I can get the majority of it done. I've got a smattering of different things. Some are like kind of rehabby rescue repots. Some are just like, you know, on time repots. First one I'm going to repot. This is, maybe, no, it'll be fine. This is my Dark Phoenix Ralph Lynam Fort Sherman from Cartel Down. It is doing so well. I showed this really recently, like maybe two videos ago. So as some of you know, I'm trying to be very proactive about upsizing my pots, especially for my anthuriums, to keep that size up going, to stop it from shedding leaves. And this one has grown quite a bit of stem above the substrate here. So what I'm gonna do is get it into a deeper pot and just keep it in pond and no drainage. It seems to really like this setup, and it is actually, unfortunately, pushing a leaf right now. But it's fine because I'm not going to really like disrupt the roots too much. I don't see root rot on it, so I don't see any need to like have to go in there and cut things off. So this is gonna be a really straightforward, easy one, just pond to pond, bigger vessel. This next one is also from Cartel, and it's a little bit sad. So this one is my Bigfoot crossed with blue pap, and when I received it, it was kind of like this like lighter green, which I attributed to them growing it in like Indonesian sun. I don't actually know their greenhouse setup. I could probably find out, but I think that it got quite a bit of light. And my experience from importing from Indonesia is that once it gets into my conditions, it tends to get a little bit darker. It probably grows slower and probably sizes up slower, but it is darker. So I was expecting that to happen, but then it started to get these like chlorotic looking, you know, stuff. And then it pushed a new leaf, which is darker, but it is underdeveloped. And I see dry rot in here. So what I'm gonna do is get it into slightly bigger pot with tree fern and soil. So this is tree fern mixed with perlite pond without any soil and a leca layer at the bottom. So we're just gonna get it into something a little bit more nutritious, but it's not looking good right now. Another tree fern soil rescue. So this one is, this one's perpetually like happy, then really sad, then happy, and then really sad. So this is my Meg Crystal crossed with Carla Blackie from Amanda. It is so beautiful. Since the last repot, when I got it into this vessel, it pushed this leaf, which is quite a big size up. I got it as like a tiny little seedling last year. And I also see dry rot here. You can see down here in the leca layer, there are these very deflated looking roots. They're not like juicy, soggy, like wet banana kind of look. They do look like just deflated, and that's how I identify dry rot. And I know that this leca layer does get dry, so this is a question I get a lot is do you keep a reservoir in there at all times? And when I do tree fern or tree fern soil, I didn't, but then lately I've been figuring out a way to keep a reservoir in here and keep it kind of consistently like damp, but not like soggy wet, because tree fern and soil can get quite soggy and muddy. So what I've just been doing is just watering down the side of the vessel, kind of fill up this reservoir, and it really only gets wet on the side, and then this will slowly wick moisture upwards and keep it kind of like more ideally wet, not like wet, if that makes sense. I do like this like leca layer as a reservoir setup, but I just been kind of watering wrong all this time. So I'm gonna kind of treat the root rot, like get it all cut off and then put it into tree fern soil. I do think that a lot of the issues with this plant that I've had has been due to underhydration. And you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see, but I can definitely feel that the leaves are quite soft. So this tells me it is kind of dehydrated. Even just the perkiness it's not fully gone, it's not limp, but it does feel different to when it's fully hydrated. So that one's a rehab. And which one is also rehab? This one. This is my Spider Ralph man. So it's a cross between Spider Bess, which is a Bessier app with quite spidery veins, and Ralphinum Fort Sherman. So this one, I think, did not dry out. It has a pond layer at the bottom instead of leca because I ran out of leca at one point. I think this one responded poorly to when it got really cold in my house before I turned on the heat. So it was like 15 degrees in my house for a while, and I was in like a fleece and cold, and like my plants in the tent, not all of them, but some of them started to like kind of get a little bit yellow around the edges and stuff. So I think there's nothing really super wrong with this one because I can see a lot of really healthy roots. The roots that came out the bottom are still yellow tipped, hydrated. I don't think that it was an underwatering issue. So what I'll do is get it into tree fern soil and a bigger pot, even though it hasn't really filled out this pot, but I don't really want to repot it again anytime soon. Yeah, the only other thing I can think of is that I was just like maybe inconsistent with the watering, and maybe I let it get too dry a couple of times, but not so dry that the roots completely dehydrated. And it's possible that it caused some guttation on the edge and maybe some cells burst, and that left it kind of susceptible to fungal issues. I'm not really sure, but that's what this kind of looks like to me. The important thing is that the roots are healthy and it's actively growing a new leaf. So I'm not super worried about that one. This one doesn't really super need a repot, but I wanted to get it into tree fern soil. So this is my Anthurium diabloense, also from Amanda. Wait, let me situate the ears for you. There. How cute is this? Like, it looks like what's that guy called? Flubber. Flubber. This Flubber is what I'm thinking of. He looks like Flubber. He's so cute. Right now this is in like a moss and perlite and some tree fern, but mostly moss, but I do see all those components. I want to get into tree fern soil, I think, and into like a pot. This one lives in like in my tent, kind of at the back where I don't really like see right away. So I don't want it to dry out, and the moss can dry out really, really quickly. So this one is like just insurance moving to a different substrate. Last but not least, I think I'm gonna actually do this one first. This is my Anthurium debile. This plant is it's a single leaf plant. That's all you need to know. I can't get it to hold on to leaves. This is the most disgusting substrate. So if you've ever grown debile, or if you've ever looked into growing debile, you might have seen like a lot of horror stories about how much humidity they need, and I will say like a lot of that is true. I can't get it to hold on to more than maybe 2 leaves at a time. It usually crisps off and just like it's just a dry taco. So one thing that I learned from Facebook, because someone had been pretty successful in growing it, and they're like, water it every 2 days. I'm not even joking. So what I did was I put it into tree fern. I don't have any sort of like non-tree fern reservoir there at the bottom. And then I just try to sit it in water all the time. So that's why you can see this vessel is nasty and it's freaking soggy, and it's growing these like, it's growing moss on the top. Where that came from, I don't know. And it's growing these little, like, I don't even know what they are. Where is it? Here. They're like kind of clover looking things. A seaweed, I don't know. I kind of personally like it when plants do this, but then it's looking pretty funky. So what I'm gonna do is, you can see how much stem is above the substrate now. So I'm gonna get into like a taller pot, not too big. Because it has to live in my tent, I have limited space in there. So I'm gonna just go one size up, get it covered to about here. Future me's problem is finding another container to sit it in that's wide enough to hold a wider pot. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. That's not for you guys to worry about. We'll probably go headless for this portion. So bye head. I've been doing so many repots, and it just so happens that every time before I film, I don't wipe my potting mat. I do it like every other time I repot, and just this time is not clean, and I do apologize. It's probably a little bit gross. You guys, we've encountered a problem. So I went to find more of my pots, like the large size of this pot, and I am fully out. So this is not a direct replacement, but these deli cups I think is what we're gonna have to use. It's not the end of the world. Okay, let me consult my notes. I'm gonna utilize a lot of the topics that people suggested. Someone responded to the story saying that they're kind of in that gotta catch 'em all phase of plant collecting. So let me just, I don't know when was the last time I talked about that kind of era in my life, but just to give you guys a bit of context. So I've always been very much like attracted to plants. Whenever I come by plants, walk by plants, I'm in a store with plants, I'm always just like, kind of like standing there staring at them. So I always knew that I was like very much into plants, but I had a very bad track record for keeping plants alive. And I always kind of from a distance admired people who seem to just know how to like diagnose a plant, knows what it needs, can look at a plant, feel the substrate, and just know what to do. I always felt like that was like an unattainable skill. So I only got plants as like, I don't know, either gifts, or I'm at like a non-planty store and this plant just looked so cute in this pot and I was like, I'm gonna buy it for decoration. Looking back, I had 2 main issues that prevented me from growing nice plants. The first one is I did not understand that plants needed light. So I would put a cactus full on in the dark and then be like so confused when it like mushed off into nothing. And the second thing is, oh, this pot is just so gross. The second thing is that I just was choosing all the wrong plants. I was actually choosing plants that are even now I would consider a little bit more difficult. I'm just undoing this because I want to see what the roots are like, and so I can sit it a little deeper in the pot. I also grew like ficus ginseng, which I find that plant a little bit difficult as well now. And I never really took the time to like try to figure out the care of them or like what light they required. The roots are not bad. It's sitting in such soggy tree fern, and the roots, I haven't found rotty ones yet. Okay, so I'm gonna see if maybe this will be fine. Let me see how deep I can sit this now. Not the best. Maybe I could do it a little bit more. So it wasn't until I got a ZZ plant that I realized that, oh, like I can keep a plant alive and it's actually growing. Like I'm sorry if you can hear Doug in the background. Sometimes Huxley will like take toys away from him and just like jump up on a windowsill where he can't reach, and he gets really mad about it. But yeah, it wasn't until I got a ZZ plant that I realized that like some plants are different care. Oh, I also tried to grow jasmine, which didn't work so well in my favor. So anyway, 2020 rolls around, and like so many people, I got really bored and I jumped into the plant hobby head first. I think I got into plants, or like started to look for plants, like look for specific plants because of Plantarina. I think I just wanted to decorate with plants at first. By the way, I'm putting just like straight aroid mix in this because the roots are kind of surrounded by tree fern. So I'm not even gonna bother like mixing tree fern because I do want this to be a little bit soggy. So I started to like look at garden centers and stuff for these plants, and I wanted these like beautiful trailing curtains, and I wanted my house to be like walking into a rainforest. And I couldn't find these plants at the garden center because guess what? Everyone was doing the same thing. So I don't know where I saw the suggestion to join a Facebook group, but I joined the YVR Facebook group. So that's the group that is moderated by Charmaine, and the admin is Jing. At that point, I think there was only like 900 members or something like that. So it wasn't a lot. This is not as deep as I want it to be, by the way. I wish it was kind of more up to here, but I'm very limited in my pot options. So yeah, that was the beginning of the end, and I can't tell you how many plants I must have bought in that time. So that was my gotta catch 'em all phase. I was indiscriminately buying plants, not knowing if I even really liked it. If it was a plant, I wanted it. If it was a plant that I didn't have, that is. And like, I also like got a lot of like wish list ideas from like Kaylee Ellen when I was first watching Planty YouTube. And those of you who are collecting in 2020 would know like the prices were not cheap. I spent a lot of money. I discovered importing plants. Sorry, my hands are so dirty. I discovered importing plants. So then we started importing from Ecuagenera. I met Charmaine during that time. We fed off each other. We were importing plants together. We were on Facebook all the time. We were participating in every purge. I was buying plants, I think, every day, maybe every other day. I wasn't spending a lot of money because it was the pandemic and there wasn't really a lot to do. But also I was kind of like furloughed at the same time. So I was trying to put money aside for savings every paycheck, but then that savings got dipped into all the time for plants. Like if I wanted a plant and I didn't have enough money on my account, right into savings. Took money out, bought that plant. This one is done. It's not my favorite repot. I wish I could do better, but this is what I got. Moving on to the next one. This is Bigfoot Blue Pap. This one has a bit of root rot. Yeah, I'm telling you guys this not because I'm proud of it or anything, but I know that other people have done the same as me and been really reckless with their finances in the name of collecting plants because you want to grab it first, and you don't know when the next time that opportunity will present itself again. Because just bear in mind that I was new to social media and plants. So I just really didn't know how availability worked with plants and stuff. It wasn't until 2021, like a year of this nonsense, where I realized how often plants come around, the same plants. When it comes to anthuriums, I can honestly tell you, if you're just getting into anthuriums now, the same applies. The opportunity will present itself again. And obviously, if your situation is that you have a lot of disposable income, it puts no financial strain on you to just buy every plant that tickles your fancy. I am so happy for you, and you do you. There is zero judgment here, either side. By the way, I have decided, even though it has such a tiny root system, I've decided I'm gonna go boat mode. Yep, I'm gonna go boat mode. We're gonna do tree fern soil. Because this is such a tiny root system and a tiny plant, we're gonna do like on the bottom with drainage. So part of the problem or the part of the cycle, I should say, of buying a lot of plants, getting this like shopping addiction with plants is shopping addiction is so common. I definitely went through that myself with like clothes when I was in like my like luxury fashion era. That was already kind of a part of my psyche and my DNA to like over collect and just forego a lot of things just to obtain the next new thing. So I can completely relate to anyone who's like going through that exact same thing with anthuriums right now. But with plants, it's kind of different because not only do you get the thrill of buying something, so when you get plant mail, that is thrilling. If you obtain something through a purge and you were like the first to get it, and then you get that mail, or you find something at a store that was like really lucky, the thrill is there. At the same time, that's compounded by you now having a plant, right, that you can nurture and care for, and it will grow for you. It's not quite the same as buying the next new toy. So I do feel like there's that added dimension when it comes to plant collecting. And when I turned from like just like a regular houseplant, you know, lover to a full-blown collector, that's one thing I really struggled with, is like just normalizing in my brain the constant buying of plants. It was so normal to me. And some of these plants were so new to me in terms of like how they grow, the care that they require. I didn't really know what I would jive with. I didn't know. I just was really going off of what people on Instagram or YouTube was saying that like is necessary for these plants, which, you know, in hindsight, a lot of that wasn't necessary. So I purchased a lot of plants that no longer are with me because I just realized over time that I don't actually like them very much, or they don't grow well for me. I don't have the conditions for them, or they had an annoying part of them. And then for me, the big kind of reality check was in 2021 to 2022 were financially very stressful for me because I was not putting money aside as savings. And so a bunch of things cropped up, like unexpected expenses cropped up that just sent me into a tailspin. And I didn't have that safety net anymore because I was spending all my disposable income on plants without even really knowing how to care for them or grow them well, so that I could then sell them for hopefully the same price. But also at the same time, plant prices were dropping around that time as well. So I couldn't really rely on plants as a source of income either. Compounded with that, I was in a very unhappy place in my life in 2022, like New Year's Day when I started my YouTube channel. I was in like the middle of a really bad mental health time. And if you look back on my videos from the beginning of my channel to now, I would say it's like a completely different person. I've definitely filled out in my cheeks. So physically I look different. I was like skinnier then. You could just tell there just wasn't as much life in me. And that's truly how I felt inside. I was really just lost and stressed, and plants was putting me in an unhealthy financial state. And looking back on it, I don't regret it, because I feel like I wouldn't really have learned my lesson if I hadn't just lived through it. I'm a bit kind of like, I don't like being told what to do, so I have to learn for myself. And I don't know if it would have really hit me that hard if I hadn't gone through that and had to like fix my problems and stop buying plants, be smarter with my finances, say no to the things that I wanted, and just, that's part of growing up, right? Like realizing that you don't get whatever you want. Working on the pappy today. I forget if I even showed this to you. I didn't even show this plant to you at the beginning. I just realized. This is my pappy port from Amanda. It's been in this setup for a little while now. It has plant at the bottom, tree fern on top. I'm just gonna size it up. I just feel like there's nothing really super wrong with it. The roots look healthy. This one's more of like a proactive size up. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I had to learn for myself that the plants will always be more plants. I can't even think of a single circumstance where I could not have gotten that plant again. Like maybe there's one clone of a hybrid, a one-off mutation that's never going to happen again on the other side of the world. And if you don't get this now, you'll never see it again because there's only one. But how often does that happen? And I think a theme that really underpins everything I'm trying to say today is plants, whether it be growing plants, collecting plants, it requires patience. And the patience that is required to collect is that the patience to wait for something to come back along again, and the patience to force yourself to wait, to make sure that you truly do want the plant and it's not an impulse purchase. If, again, impulse purchases are an issue for you. If it's not an issue for you, then impulse purchase away. That, like, a good impulse purchase can be very gratifying and very fun. But if you recognize that impulse purchasing is a problem for you and it's like an unhealthy habit that is presenting problems in other parts of your life, then you do kind of have to force yourself to wait. So right now, one of the questions was like, what is your kind of parameters for buying a plant? Like, how long do you wait before you kind of bite the bullet? Or like, when do you know you're ready for that plant, especially if it's an expensive one? So in the past 1.5 to 2 years, I really haven't been purchasing a lot of plants. I've been like trading a lot, and I've been receiving some plants, free of charge because of what I do on YouTube. And don't get me wrong, I do not take that granted for 1 second. The plants that I've received are some of my favorites in my collection. You probably see them all the time. So I do get that my situation is like slightly different from other people, but it's not like I'm getting plants like every week. It's not happening all the time. So when I'm exposed to plants that are really pretty, like at the shop or at like pop-ups, like import pop-ups, at this point, I'm finding it quite easy to say no to plants. Again, because I've lived through that feeling of overwhelm, the feeling of desperately wanting to purge my collection, and also having the experience of growing a lot of different genera within like the Araceae family, that I now understand market prices. If it's like kind of new to market, the prices will come down. So I don't jump on things when it's like freshly introduced. I don't need to be the first one to own anything. The other thing is, like, I know sometimes certain plants require really finicky conditions, or certain genera grow really weird. I've grown a different species from this genus and it's been really annoying. So as beautiful as this is, I'm going to let it go. And I can appreciate enjoying a plant from afar far easier now than I could before. So my threshold lately has been, I don't give it like a deadline. I have a general sense of how long I've been wanting a plant, and whether that desire for that plant dissipates over time or if it just stays really stable. I like to make sure that I understand what the plant looks like at different stages of maturity. Will I still like it when it's mature? I like to ideally know someone who grows the plants who can then give me some context on like the care, challenges they've had. I want to get as much information as possible. So once I have all that information and I still want that plant, then I allow myself to get the plant. So I just recently went through something. I'm not going to tell you what plant it is just because I don't want to. I almost convinced myself to buy a $500 US plant. The opportunity was there, and I found myself rationalizing and kind of tallying up how many plants I needed to sell to purchase said plant for $500. One other question which I will touch on is what is like the most you're willing to spend on for a plant? So obviously I was considering buying a $500 plant that I did not need. I know I didn't need that plant. I don't need any plant, truly. I might act like I need a plant. I don't need any plants. All the substrate, by the way, is gonna get reused. I'm just gonna push it off to this side. The roots on this thing are freaking massive. Look at that, it's like a baseball bat. It's like clarinervium thick roots. It's so cool. Okay, I'm gonna put this in drainage. Is this too small? It's a it's a bit smaller. It's not so boat mode-y. You know what? That's fine. Is it fine though? Is this root broken? Feels really dangly. Feels really like it's just holding on by a thread. Oh well. I think it's okay. So in the end, I decided not to buy it, but it was the first time in years, at least I want to say 2 years, where I actually considered purchasing something of that price tag. Oh, my boyfriend just got home. I'm gonna close the door. What really brought me back to reality is I took a minute and just thought about my current life situation. So as some of you might know, because I've talked about it a few times, about like quitting my job and now I'm self-employed. Things are just different for me now. Financially, there's no stability in what I'm doing. So one month can be very lucrative and the next month it's like almost nothing. So I really need to make sure that those good months last me quite a few months. And at the same time, there's Christmas coming up, and you guys know how much I love and adore Christmas. There's nothing I love more on this earth than Christmas time. There was just more important fish to fry, and I said no to the plant, but I was right back in there. It almost felt like 2020 again, where I would jump at a $400 US plant like it was nothing. Like, buy now, think about it later. And I'm so glad I have the experience to manage myself. And I'm not saying that $500 is like way too much to pay for a plant. I have zero judgment on anyone buying plants for very high prices, because I see people, especially friends of mine who are a little bit more financially endowed. Before, it used to be like I needed to kind of keep up with them, or like I was using that to rationalize me spending the same amount when I wasn't even in the same pay grade as them. Now I kind of see it like as an opportunity for me to live vicariously through them. So I do have friends that have more disposable income, or just like they're better earners than I am, and they can afford very expensive, beautiful plants that I would love to own, but I don't need it anymore. There's nothing I need more than to feed and clothe myself, put away money for the future, and make sure that I am not living under the stress of financial burden. That is more important to me than any one plant in the whole world. Oh, this one looks so cute in this pot now. I love it. I am blowing through these plants. I have 3 left, but that's probably good because I've got about 30 minutes left before the food will get here. Okay, moving along in my notes. Okay, I wanted to also talk about like the FOMO of not knowing what's going on. I don't know if that counts as FOMO, but a lot of people brought this up, and they always bring it up when they talk about anthuriums. Like, they don't know what's happening. They don't know what things mean. Like, they feel like it's speaking a different language within, like, they're in a plant hobby, which they feel like they understand what everything means. And then suddenly you go into the anthurium hobby and like everything is abbreviated, and like these acronyms, you don't even know what it means. And there's definitely a part of the plant hobby, like type of person that enjoys newbies not knowing what's happening, and makes them feel a little bit stupid for it. And they don't want to like pipe up and say, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. Hold on, before I repot this thing, this isn't really much of an upsize. You know what? I'm not gonna bother with this one. I'm gonna be at the shop tomorrow, so I'm gonna restock on larger square pots. We're gonna leave this for another time. So yeah, like I think some people find it embarrassing to not know what certain things mean in this hobby. You know what? This one is also not going to be a size up if I put it into this deli cup. So this is also not gonna be repot. I don't know if I really have any small plants to repot now. Hold on, let me reposition the camera. So it's becoming abundantly clear to me now. This is going to be a 2-part filming session. So I'm gonna stop repotting plants now until I restock on pots. I'm just gonna like kind of finish some of my thoughts. I'm gonna actually see if Charmaine wants to do the second part with me when we like are driving up to the shop tomorrow, because we're gonna carpool. So yeah, the need to feel respected in this hobby. Like nobody wants to feel stupid. And I think there's a fear that maybe not even an irrational fear. There is probably a real fear of people making fun of them or looking down on them for not knowing certain things, like not knowing who this particular person is, or not knowing the importance of said person, or not knowing what this particular acronym or abbreviation stands for. I think it would be very contrite for me to say like, I don't care what people think. Like, I don't care what people think. Like, people could think whatever they want about me. I don't think that's true of me, at least. Deep down, I must care whether people think I know what I'm talking about or not. I want to say I don't super care. I want to say if people think I don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine, because deep down I get enjoyment out of this hobby, and I know that my knowledge counts for something because I'm able to grow plants. But there is that fear, and I think it's not even like specific to the plant hobby. I think this will exist in almost every hobby where there's elitism, and there's also people that kind of work hard to keep a lot, or like the elite part of the hobby very esoteric and just kind of stop people from coming in. So they might like over abbreviate things, use a lot of terms that people don't understand, and just try to talk in such a level that a newbie wouldn't understand what they mean, and maybe it gives them some kind of sense of importance. Those people will always exist. It doesn't matter. It's not exclusive to the plant hobby. That's just how it is. And I've worked with those kinds of people in my line of work. I am also working on another anthuriums video, which I hope to be kind of like basic knowledge, basic care, kind of dispelling some myths. Oh, my light just went off. Dispelling some myths, or kind of demystifying anthuriums for people. So if you have questions like, what does this mean? What are people talking about when they say this? Anything along those lines, feel free to, if you don't want to leave it as a comment, feel free to DM me on Instagram, although I can't guarantee you that I'll see it, because my DMs, I have a mind to like just wipe it clean and then start over fresh, because I'm at the point where it's too messy for me to even go in there anymore. But do give it a try. Instagram is also filtering out a lot of my DMs, going into the hidden ones, and like I don't always see that either. Or you can also hit the email button on my channel and just email it to me. I promise you, the anthurium terminology, information, the names and stuff, the longer you're exposed to it, even like a month or two, if you're like exposed constantly to it, it'll make sense. Just trust me, it will completely make sense. It's kind of the same as like when you first got introduced to anthuriums. Maybe all anthuriums look the same to you, but now you can see all the minute differences between anthuriums. It's kind of like that. It will come. But if I can kind of quickly answer any sort of confusions, I will try to do that in that video. If there's like a new acronym I've never heard of before, oftentimes somebody else will have asked it in the comments, and I just lurk and I just read. So with anthuriums, FOMO is pretty bad because A, it's extremely hyped right now. B, they're very expensive, which then further drives the hype, or like certain ones can be quite expensive. C, they are so readily bred that one parent plant can produce so many different types of offspring. And then even within these seed batches, these like random mutations happen pretty frequently that makes like this one particular specimen look very, very distinct from the parents. And that drives up the price. And there's a lot to take in if you are just starting to collect anthuriums. And also it's hard to know whether you're overpaying or paying the appropriate price. All of that unfortunately comes with time and a lot of observation. So if you're new to anthuriums, I strongly urge you to take your time with them, because a lot of people have commented to me that they would like some guidance on like how to identify things. And I don't know if I'm the right person to be teaching anyone that, because I'm not a botanist and I can't describe a plant the way that a botanist would. I could do it on like a very super basic level, but I don't know if it's even enough to, you know, really teach someone what they need. I just would encourage you to study leaf shapes, study petiole shapes, study leaf colors. Sometimes can help. Color is like a really difficult one because like conditions can manipulate color. Study sinuses, study how the veins protrude or are sunken in. This will help immensely because the more you study, the more information you're building up in your head, you're also mentally logging away market prices for certain plants, what plants sold for. One thing, by the way, one thing I hate that people do is hide the sold for price. So when it was listed, it would say like, let's say $200. And then once it's sold, they take the price away and write sold. Some groups I can see edit history, but the anthurium groups, I can't see the edit history. So I want to know for myself what the market price of that plant was. And essentially, if a plant was sold, that's kind of market price. You know, the market price is what people are willing to pay. Observe as much as you can of different specimens of plants that you're interested in. Never ever buy a plant based on like one photo. And I mean like, this is a plant you've never seen before, and you suddenly saw this one photo and you're really taken by that one plant, by that one photo, and the next time you see a plant, you buy it sight unseen or not really knowing what it's gonna look like. This usually happens with like kind of oddball plants or like plants that are completely new to market, and it's probably gonna end in disappointment. I would wait. Patience, right? While you're studying the plant, it's so great to try to focus on the care of that genus if it's new to you. So start with something really attainable that you're not going to like, it's not gonna make or break you if it dies. This experimentation within the hobby is the only way for you to learn for yourself, because you can't replicate somebody else's conditions. So what works for me might not work for you, vice versa. So experiment on your own plants that aren't that valuable and just observe them as much as possible. Observe new leaves and how they're different from each other, and then get right up to them and then like feel them, the texture. This is what it feels like when it's fully hydrated, and this is what it looks like when it's fully hydrated. So if this is what it looks like when it's hydrated and then 3 days later it starts to look like this, you will notice. And at the same time, you're going to be starting to see all the intricate differences between different anthuriums. So much observation can lead you to like smarter decisions. If like overpaying or buying plants you can't keep alive, or killing a plant that you can't afford to kill, those kinds of things are a concern to you, then like just hold back. Start with something easier. Introduce yourself to the hobby, because anthuriums, they're very similar to philodendrons in a lot of ways, and they're quite different to anthuriums in a lot of ways. No, what am I saying? They're quite different to philodendrons in a lot of ways. Seeing others' collections on Instagram puts a weird social pressure on me to complete my collection. I totally get that. Yeah, I totally get that. There's really nothing, it's not about the plants at that point, it's about us as people. And again, I don't know what else to do other than patience to live through a hype coming and going, a plant opportunity, a plant buying opportunity coming and going, and you understanding that that didn't negatively affect your life and you lived through it. The other thing that really helps with FOMO, or helps you be able to obtain things, is making friends in the community. Ideally that share some of your same interests in like the same types of plants, because you can go on joint purchases on a plant that you don't want to pay that much for, cutting the cost that way. You can buy supplies in bulk and share it that way, so it's so much cheaper to buy a 40-liter bag of tree fern, for example, than a 5-liter bag, just value-wise. If they obtain a wish list plant, you can live vicariously through them. So a friend of mine just recently got a circus peanuts, and I've been wanting that plant for years. I'm not gonna buy that plant anytime soon unless the prices just plummet. I don't need to own that plant, especially at that price, but this particular friend is well endowed in that department, so he was able to get that plant, and I can live vicariously through him and I just get enjoyment out of it. But also at the same time, I can learn about the care based on their experiences, because hopefully they will give you quite an unbiased, transparent account of their experience growing the plant. They're not ideally not having to hide anything from you or try to make something worse or better than it actually is. Advice on navigating the community. So this is going to lead to a bunch of different things. So on Facebook, this is mainly a Facebook thing actually, where a lot of buying and selling happens. Be freaking nice, okay? It's not a drill. People, I think that people won't remember like them being a prick to other people, and that they can turn around and like be all nice and then sell plants, and it will never like come back to bite them. But people remember these things. I can't speak for everyone, but I remember everybody. And I remember what you did in 2021. I can't stress it enough. If you can't be nice, then just be quiet. You don't need to say that mean comment just to get your point across. Whether or not you feel justified in that, it doesn't look good on you. And this was something I abided by even before I was on YouTube, and you know, like I had some skin in the game. So that's one thing that Jing, this really funny Japanese article about I think it was like a silent roller coaster, and we just took one quote from this that was just like so on point and so beautifully said. So there's this, I don't know why this thing exists, but there's a roller coaster where you're not allowed to scream on it. I don't know if that's part of the challenge or anything, but it's like, if you have to scream, scream inside your heart. We just thought that sounded so funny, and we say it all the time, just scream inside your heart. If you don't like it, scream inside your heart. You don't need to fight every battle, and not everyone's gonna remember every bad thing anyone's ever done on Facebook, and every time they've acted in a way that was like very inappropriate or just super rude or whatever. But some people will, and like me personally, I won't forget it. And there's certain people on Facebook, like they might have my #1 wish list plant for $5. I would not give them 1 red cent. That is so important if you're trying to navigate this hobby in a healthy way, where what you give into it is what you get out of it. Be nice to people, and if you don't have something nice to say, or if you want to say something offensive or rude in that situation because you're feeling a type of way, just shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Nope, don't do it. If you have something to argue against, there's a way to say it that's not offensive. Like, you can tell when someone's meaning to cause hurt to the other people. You know what I mean? I'm not saying people shouldn't disagree. Disagreeing is totally fine, but go at it in a respectful way. Just always be respectful of people. It might come back to bite you if you get caught up in something you don't want to be caught up in. Okay, so what I still have left to talk about is anthurium collecting tips and the feeling of overwhelm in the hobby, but I'm gonna cut it here for now because I think my food is almost here. So hopefully I'll see you back here with Charmaine and we'll resume this discussion.
Wow, you guys gotta see this rig setup, man. It's
we're
something else.
We're filming on the dashboard again, except we have you propped up on a granola bar and then tied to the dash using a rubber band.
Whatever works.
This is amazing.
MacGyvering.
Oh, it's so good. We don't have a double chin. Just
like
one
this
chin
angle.
today.
Every time we do car chats, it's like,
I'm like,
like skip forward past this, please.
Sorry about the sudden audio change,
Yes.
but we're racing to the shop now. And then we got to get on this car chat because there's so much to talk about.
There is.
So much. Okay,
Oh,
so you guys, where did we leave off? I have notes and everything.
My dude.
Oh, she's driving so fast.
Always drive fast.
Okay, so where we left off is the topic of like how to get into anthuriums in a like affordable way, knowing what we know about how prices go up and down and like trends come and go. So I'll go through like actual specific questions, and then the topic of overwhelm. When your collection gets too big, when there's so many plants that you want but you don't know where to start, when the plant gear gets too much. So like yeah, how to get into them affordably when you don't even really know where to start, and you're like so confused about like pricing and like what's gonna hold value and stuff like that.
Jeez, what a question. Okay, sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
I need to this freaking Vince's basketball is gonna send me into a frenzy.
Oh, is that what's rattling the bag?
Like that he stores his damn basketball in here.
Okay, I'm gonna start.
Okay, go ahead.
A few years ago, when a lot of people were getting into anthuriums, myself included, there weren't that many people hybridizing. There wasn't nearly as many people as there are now. You're just basically buying like full plants. There wasn't a lot of seeds to go around. And just as an aside, like sometimes I look at people who got into anthuriums the same time that we did and have been growing them the same amount of time, and their collection is probably worth 10 times ours is, which kind of makes me feel like I've made some wrong decisions somewhere. how to get into them affordably. The first thing is that you can buy seeds, but also bear in mind that like seeds are not going to produce offspring that look just like the parent, especially if it's like two different parents. Obviously you're going to look quite different, but then if like a plant self will look different. Usually the only one I can see like looking pretty much exactly the same, not the only one, but like an example of one is luxurians. So knowing that, then you can get into seeds without that expectation that it's going to look exactly like the mother plant. And then some sellers will insist on selling seeds in multiple packs, just so you're more likely to get a seed that produces a plant that's more up your alley. So if you don't have that expectation, get seeds. They're way more affordable. Learn how to germinate. It's so much fun to get seeds and then grow them up to little babies and then full on big plants.
Before, when I first got in, I think we were all the same when we first got into like imported plants in general. It was like the bigger the better. But now I feel like we appreciate it more growing from a smaller plant. And I think we know that things just acclimatize and grow better in our conditions when we grow it from a small plant. So long term, it's a less stressful process.
100%.
More enjoyable.
Yeah,
and
you get more of that
money.
Nurturing kind of feeling from making it mature.
Well, and I think you made a good point in the group chat yesterday. Sorry, kind of going back to what you were saying about like how other people's anthurium collections are worth way more than ours. And I think we were investing in the wrong things at that time. Philodendrons. Like if someone could tell me now that like 3 years later, these plants were going to be worth basically nothing, I would have waited.
Oh yeah.
I think I would have.
Yeah.
And then I think we would have gotten into anthurium way more.
Yeah, and I think part of what contributes to like the overall long-term value of anthuriums is their variability and how many, like countless infinity variations you can create by hybridizing and selfing. And I think seeds are really fun. I know there are a lot of people that are against selling seeds, so long as it's germinated and like it's already poked out a root and it's like most likely going to produce a plant.
That's my only stipulation. I personally would not buy a seed if it was just straight
fresh,
from
plucked off the
like I want to see a germination sign first and then I'll buy it.
But if it's germinated being like the baseline expectation, then I think the really fun thing is that like if you don't get something that looks just like the parent plant, but there's also a chance you're going to get some sort of mutation that looks really distinct and really, really fun. And I think that that's like a fun part of people buying seeds. So yes, like there are people who are against it by saying that like it might be misleading to buyers thinking that they're going to get something that looks just like the original plant, which is why I think this is a question that some people have asked. Why are like clones or cuttings more expensive, and like which route should you go? It really depends on what your expectations are. If you want only something that looks just like the parent plant, then get a cutting and it's going to cost you more.
If you have friends that you can share with, like if you invest in a plant and you take cuttings, because we do that. I don't feel the need, like if one of them get like a wish list plant of mine, I can hold out hope that you
automatically feel a little bit less like you need that plant.
Exactly,
you almost have it already. If you're trying to go about it on a budget, I would assume that means that you don't have a lot of anthuriums to begin with. So I would like highly recommend buying like established small plants that are easier and affordable to get your anthurium practice going. I feel like I disagree. I'm sorry, my phone. I feel like I disagree with a lot of people's like starter anthurium suggestions.
What? I want to know some.
So Clarinervium, 100% disagree. I don't think that's an easy anthurium. Even as an underwater, I don't find it very easy.
Disagree.
People say like Crystallinum forgetii are all like just super easy, foolproof anthuriums. I think they're good representation of anthurium care, but I don't think that they're like so easygoing, like they're just gonna grow on nothing. One suggestion I would have is Pallidiflorum. They grow really great in ambient conditions. They're really easy to import and they root really readily. They're pretty drought tolerant. It's not the best one if you're looking to like practice breeding. If you want to practice breeding, then Forgetii would be the one. But I also would suggest Forgetii because it is so common that depending on the type of Forgetii you're looking for and like how much silver or no silver, you can get one, and Forgetiis are so adorable. I do highly recommend crystallinum. We're on like we want to push crystal because we think it's so underrated.
Super underrated.
But not just any crystal, like not like because crystal I feel like is quite a strong parent as well. So there's a lot of like these complex genetic, like multiple breeding, lots of different plant genes crystals that look really underwhelming. They're like quite green, but the ones that look the closest to a pure crystallinum, which is like really dark and it has like the crispest silver veins,
like almost white basically.
Yeah, it's just brilliant.
And it looks so clean.
So clean, and they size up really well. I don't think that they're foolproof easy, but they're affordable enough and they're not in high demand, so you can get into it. So I feel like Crystal Black is a really good one from Tropicals. It kind of has that brilliant clean look.
I didn't find the Crystal Black to be the easiest.
No, it's not that easy, and it has a really wide growth pattern, like the petioles go horizontal.
Crystal Mags flower all the time if you want to practice hybridizing.
Yeah,
I feel like they're always pushing an inflow.
And Crystal Mags should be quite easy to get.
And cheap.
Super depending cheap. On where you are in the world, of course. Yeah, I don't know, like there's so many anthuriums that have completely dropped in value, which is another question. Like, where do you see the market going? Do you think they're going to drop in price? Like, we're already seeing them drop in price. Luxurians a couple years ago was probably like
$350.
It was like
USD.
$500 when Tropicals first started selling it, and now you could get a little seedling for like $40-50 probably quite easily. The Lux hybrids used to be very expensive, and now like it's really easy to get. I see them all the time for like, I don't know, $50 to $100. Even the SP Nova DF, which was like probably going on auction for like, I don't know, $7,000 even just a year ago, now I can see it going for like $1,000 to $2,000. So it's dropping rapidly. The more people, like think about it, like one person has this plant, sell it to two people, and those two people will then sell it to two people. Like this tree that like exponentially grows of people sharing it, every plant drops in value. Unless people refuse to sell it, then it won't. But then like,
but usually if someone's investing that much into a plant, they're going to want to get something back from it.
Exactly. In anthuriums, have a very healthy suspicion for IDs unless you are very confident on the credibility of that seller. Even now, with so many people able to identify anthuriums, I still see a lot of anthuriums being sold under the wrong ID, especially if it comes from Indonesia, sometimes Ecuador. They say like this is this and this hybridized.
I question it. And sometimes if they truly don't know, I swear they just throw in like PAP hybrid on that thing. PAP hybrid X, whatever.
Yeah. And I also see people intentionally misleading customers because they have, like, let's say they want to sell this plant as Dark Mama, which is PAP Warrock. But then, so they'll sell a cutting or a seed with this plant as a parent as whatever Dark Mama. But I've also seen them in other posts admit that it was sold as Dark Mama, not really sure. So like I've seen intentional kind of weird sales tactics this way. So always have, like, just don't take everything at face value is my suggestion of how to go about it without being misled. But at the end of the day, unless it's a seed, don't buy an anthurium just based on the name, because the names are so overwhelming and the names can automatically like spark excitement because like, ooh, I see the name, I don't know, wish list plant, insert wish list plant name in there, and like I want it, but you don't necessarily take the time to look at the plant and see if you actually like how that plant is presenting and how those genes are presenting. Also, a suggestion is get to know what genes tend to be recessive and what genes tend to be dominant. Because one thing that a lot of people don't know is that the red in red crystal is a recessive gene. So something crossed with red crystal is not necessarily going to have like really red emergence, like pink veins, things like that. Purple, those are quite recessive, but like something like a pappy with like really long leaves, like dark velvet, the general shape of the pappy tends to be pretty dominant. So those are things you can learn over time, and like the general overarching theme of everything is patience. What would you suggest for someone who's like intimidated by anthuriums because of how much they think it will require to grow them in terms of a setup?
I think the advice I would give is that don't get too wrapped up in the overall advice that tends to float around the community that anthuriums require high humidity. They don't. I think a better way to put it is that they just require like moisture constantly, whether it's through humidity or through the root system, meaning just don't let it dry out. To me, the only anthurium that I allow to dry out is the clarinervium.
Yeah.
She's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, like, it's gonna take time, but you can grow anthurium without greenhouses or a fancy setup or a humidifier. Like, you can literally grow it wherever you want. But we're not talking like cloud forest, you know.
Yeah, there are exceptions to that.
There are exceptions, but I would say a vast majority of plants, especially hybrids, can be grown in the conditions that you give it. You just have to be patient. And you have to be willing to like sacrifice nice leaves to get there. But I just don't think that you should get caught up in that idea that like I can't own anthurium because I don't have.
Until I have a greenhouse.
Yeah.
It will make it easier for you to start.
For sure. Yeah. But you don't need it.
Yeah.
You really don't.
I think you do need some sort of fertilizer with anthuriums. I mean, with most plants, but you'll get really disappointing growth if you don't give them anything other than just water and whatever nutrients are in the substrate. Give them good light and be consistent with the watering.
Yeah, that's important.
I think consistency is more important than anything with anthuriums. It can present a lot of problems with if you're not consistent, if it goes back and forth too much. Someone mentioned like, you know, how to not get all like too caught up in the flash sales, the auctions, the live sales. I'll be the first to admit I love just being in that. I'm at a place now where I can be in that environment and not have like reckless impulse purchases, but we used to do that all the time. You don't go on the live sales so much, but they're actually like so much fun to have. Like I put it in my ear when I'm cooking, and then I just like watch people buy plants, and it's really fun because they do like little auctions in between. But I can see how being in that situation, someone might buy a plant just on impulse, especially when there's an auction and you almost feel like competitive because if you put in a bid and people beat your bid, you're like, oh, like your floor price was here, but then suddenly you've pushed your floor price or your max price just to win.
I'm not.
How do you advise someone? I don't know, like for us.
I don't think that you can teach anything.
You have to learn it the hard way almost.
Yeah, like I think you kind of have to experience FOMO at some point, but I think that like it dwindles eventually. I don't think anyone can say how fast it'll be until you're not feeling FOMO anymore. One way, if I could just share my story quickly. Me and Alice, I can speak for both of us, we spent a stupid amount of money on plants.
I already told them my story.
Because of FOMO and
not believing that plant is going to be available to us again at a cheaper price.
Exactly. So sorry, I just need to get in this lane, then I'm good. Oh my god, the traffic. Your collection will eventually get to a place where if you allow your FOMO to control you, it'll get to a place where it's going to overwhelm you. I promise you it will. And then it takes some time, but you sort of taper off and you start to realize who you love. And then you end up with a smaller, more curated collection. So if you want to save money, like seriously, do not let your FOMO control you, because not only are the prices going to come down, but you're going to feel overwhelmed at some point, and you're going to look around and be like, I can't take care of all these plants. And especially if you're spending like a crazy amount of money on it. And
someone actually said, like, just as a thought to discuss, is like the thrill of getting plant mail and then the dread of taking care of that plant when you receive it. So if you're like already in that place when you receive a plant, you're like, oh crap, now what am I gonna do? Then you're at the point where you really need to control those impulse purchases, because even in the live sales, like so many times I still see people like win a claim, and then there's like some lag on different people's parts. So sometimes people are like, oh no, I saw this person win, no, I saw this person win, and then the person who is up for debate is like, no, let them take it, like my credit card will thank you. Like they had that impulse thing, right, where like they're relieved that they didn't get it.
And like plants, because of the nature of how they grow and they're always being chopped and reproduced, like if you love a plant right now, it's not gonna go away. Like it's gonna be somewhere. So I don't feel like you need to like snag it up at that moment, or you're never gonna get the opportunity again. You know what I mean? Like it'll come back around, and when it does, it's probably gonna be cheaper.
What do you prioritize when you're crunched on time? So repot, fertilizing, cleaning, organizing. You want to say yours first and I'll say mine?
Watering.
I just like,
watering. Just give them water at the bare minimum. Like just give them water. It's like, to me, the fertilization, it's not going to make a massive difference, like, but it will make a difference if you forget to water, or you just keep pushing off watering. Things are going to just start dying.
The biggest priority, I think, should just be to keep it alive, because when you come out on the other side, whether it's like you're busy or you're in a bad mental health stage and you know that there's going to be an end to it, like the worst part is coming back to a collection that is dead, which like then makes you feel even worse. Do whatever you can just to keep it alive, and they need water,
and that's just usually water and light.
The water and light. Personally, water and fertilization for me is like they happen at the same time always, because I always use fertilizer water. So if you don't have an easy way to add fertilizer to your water, I would suggest the soap pump method. Just one squirt into your watering can, go through, and if you need to make it more enjoyable, because watering is like my least favorite part of plant care, just put something in your ears that is like relaxing or interesting, like podcasts, true crime, something that makes the experience less tedious. Okay, then repotting and cleaning, organizing, where would you rank that?
Honestly, repotting is always at the bottom of my
list.
Me too. It's always at the bottom.
Very last.
But I prioritize cleaning and organizing pretty high. I would say right under watering.
Yep. Because that also like contributes to mental health.
Yeah. And just like I feel like I can't function or like take care of my plants and everything. It's just all over the place. Like I can't wrap my mind around like, okay, I need to do this. So I really do try and prioritize staying organized, and I feel like that's something I've been pushing on my channel all year.
For sure.
People are probably like so tired of hearing it. Like, shut up about the cart already.
But the tidiness, it's like it's a vicious cycle, because if you're depressed, you let things get messy. The messiness further breeds depression, and it makes it so much more difficult to get out of it. So one thing that I've started, I feel like I've done some mental manipulation on my boyfriend. Every night I'm like, let's put the house to bed. So we start to do our chores, to like do all the dishes, load the dishwasher, clean the counters, fluff the cushions, fold everything up, and then now at night he's like, let's put the house to bed. And it's like our little ritual. But just putting that label on it gave us a sense of purpose with it, and it's almost like you get to like nurture your house. So putting your plant room to bed, putting your plant care stuff like away will help so much, and just getting into good habits. So yeah, that's, I guess, our full order, right? Repot is like when we have the time.
When we have time. Because, I mean, truly, like, I can't remember the last time a plant was like, oh, it's just dying now because I haven't repotted it. Like, maybe it won't hold on to as many leaves as before, but
it will not kill the plant.
It's not going to just, like, abort its entire existence because the pot's too small.
Yeah. So if your collection is getting too big and that is overwhelming you, like, just purge it. We've been trying to, with like people getting mad at us, but trying to normalize just getting rid of plants that like no longer serve you.
Whether that mean giving it away, selling it, or chucking it in the garbage can.
Yeah. Like,
I don't think that's something that people will ever agree on, because I think people, what is that word? Like, they humanize plants. Like, they give it a soul. You know, I'm not saying plants don't have souls in their own way, but like, let's not act like I'm throwing away like a human child. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's not the same thing.
It does cost you somewhat to, like, it takes up real estate in your house. You're feeding it, you're giving it substrate, you're giving it light that another plant could.
Emerging right here.
Like, it's not even dotted yet. Like,
my girl.
Yeah, and this comes back around to what we were talking about yesterday, which you weren't there, but being a good member of the community, taking care of your plants so that they are healthy enough to be sold, is just you investing in your ability to actually sell your plants. But if it gets to a point where it's like, it's embarrassing to sell this plant, it's not worth selling this plant, or it's like almost you're like taking advantage of people to sell an unhealthy plant and you have to throw it away, then you lose the money that you spent on the plant. So just be nice to people and just be like a good member of the plant community, and that's going to invest in your
I think an example plants. Of that was when I chopped up my micans, and because it had spider mites, it was just infested with spider mites, and I just chopped like freaking 6 feet off of it or something. And yes, it was very glorious and majestic, but it was covered in spider mites. And I got at least 3 comments that were like, what a waste, you just threw it away. Like, someone would have loved to rehab that. That's my choice. I don't feel comfortable selling or giving away
knowing what you know about spider mites.
Exactly. And I have every right to choose that. You know, what difference does it make to the world in general if I threw away these micans cuttings? Like, you guys don't know what everyone's doing, like, behind closed doors every day, and it doesn't affect you. So it's like, the only difference is that me and Alice put it out on the internet. You know what I mean? But like, if I don't want to sell a plant with pests or give away a plant with pests, I'm sorry, but I have the right to.
Yeah.
You'll never change my mind about it.
As a seller, or like a part-time seller, you have your standards as well, right? So I don't even if I was giving it away for free and I'm not proud of this plant's health, then I don't want to give it for free either.
Rather just lay it to rest.
Lay it to rest.
R.I.P.
Yeah. How to deal with like doubt when you've tried something new and you're experimenting something that you've seen other people do and you want to try it, and like you've done it, you've repotted this plant, the instant doubt that you feel.
For me, I guess I just try and trust the process, but I also listen to my instincts at the same time.
And you don't do it on your most prized possession right away.
I never experiment on a prized possession. That's problem number 1. If you're doing that, then I think that's where the majority of your anxiety is going to be. But if you just have it on like a plant that you have an abundance of, like a trailing plant or something, then yeah, use that for experiments. Don't use like the things that you're investing a lot of money into on experiments.
But if you've tried it a few times and then you want to try it on your prized possession and you still feel that anxiety around that plant declining because of it, just monitor it like closely. Monitor it every day after and see, is there root growth? Does the plant look really perky? Is it starting to like wilt a little bit? Is that normal for this genus to do that? With anthuriums, it's not normal for, like an alocasia, you repot it and it's always going to do this for a few days and then it kind of comes back up. Anthuriums don't tend to do that. So it comes back to studying your plant and getting to know them and how they behave. when they're healthy.
And I think it also, you have to compare the person that you're you know, getting this advice from, or you're trying to replicate what they're doing. Like, you have to kind of assess both of your conditions as well, because I get advice pretty often on my channel where it's like, oh, this person does this and he has no issues at all and it always works fine, but that person lives in Australia or somewhere overseas, and it's like, we have completely different environments, you know what I mean? So what works for him isn't gonna work for me all the time. So you have to assess that too, and not like beat yourself up if like something really isn't working because of an environmental condition that's like out of your control.
And sometimes it just helps to like get a bit of perspective from like a non-plant person, just because we get so immersed in the plant care and the acquiring plants that we see it as everything, and it really is not. So sometimes it helps to just take a step back and just like look at it big picture. Like, you know, is this hobby the way it is right now, and the size of my collection and everything, like is it doing me good? Oops.
Yeah. Oh, is that Jessie?
Is it Jessie?
Jessie's here. What a great day.
Oh, Christmas came early. We're at the shop. Wait.
Is someone parked in the spot, or is it next to?
I think it's next to.
Truck.
Jesse's here.
Yes,
Dang it.
yes,
There's no freaking parking. Ding house.
Do you have any more questions?
No, I think we're good. We're just parking now. We got to film a little bit for Charmaine's channel. So we're going to end it here. We're still going to do stuff when I get back home. For you guys watching.
Oh, you're gonna do stuff?
I'm gonna do more repots, because yesterday I was mid-repot. I was like, oh, I don't have pots.
Oh, no. Oh,
I didn't get to repot a few plants, so I still have to do that. Don't let me forget to bring pots. And I also need to bring my half red crystal home.
Oh my god. Are you actually gonna bring it?
I will bring it home. I have 2 things to remember to bring home. Okay, see you guys at home. Bye. Thank you, Charmaine. So we're back in the plant room now. We're just here to repot the last 3 plants that I didn't get to last time because I ran out of pots, but I'm restocked again. Well, this is not the only pots that I got from the shop, but I re-upped on these. I re-upped on the circular clear pots. So all the upsizes I'm going to be doing in the next while. I have the pots for, so we have, just to recap, this Mag Chris Carla, which is going into that square pot. And then the Spider Ralph Man, which is going in that same pot. And then the Dark Phoenix Ralph Lauren Port Sherman, which is going to go into this glass vessel because it's going to stay in pond. I should get like a decalcifying cleaner for this, but once it's full of pond, I don't really notice it. And then we're just going to kind of close off the discussion. First things first, before we get repotting, I wanted to address one thing that I get asked a lot, especially on this channel. I get a lot of comments on what skincare I'm using, what I'm doing to make my skin look so nice. And I wanted to talk about this because it kind of fits into the topic of FOMO. So let me just quickly dispel some myths. My skin is not very nice. I don't have the best diet. I've tried to be better at it this year. I've tried to also drink a lot more water, but I know I can still do way, way better than I currently am doing. I also have a softbox lighting me right now, which also evens out a lot of my skin tone. My camera has a soft skin effect, which also evens things out. I will say my skin now is a lot better than it was 10 years ago when I was in my 20s, a little bit more hormonal. But no matter how like even my skin feels sometimes, like with certain products that I use, like they brighten and they even out and the texture is gone, I always have at least one gnarly pimple. So right now you can see there's 2. There's one, a huge one here and a little one here, and this one, I'm not even joking, is so big that it's enlarged my chin. Like I feel like Quagmire right now. So all that is to say, my skin is not as good as it appears on this camera. And being in like my late 30s, I have like wrinkles that are appearing here. I haven't had any sagging just yet, but I do have quite a lot of smile wrinkles, which is, it doesn't really bother me too much. I have wrinkles in my forehead, but again, the camera smooths that out. That's not something I'm gonna keep secret. And that soft skin effect, to be totally transparent with you, is one reason why I was able to start showing my face on camera. But all that said, there are a couple of things that I've been noticing have been helpful in my skincare. Things that I've introduced in the last few months have been vitamin C. I've been using the Ole Henriksen like Banana Bright Serum. I've also been using their moisturizer that has ceramides, and I don't know what ceramides does. I don't know a lot about skincare, but ceramides, somebody threw it out there and I was like, okay, ceramides, I'm gonna start using ceramides. And I've been noticing just like a little bit more plumpness to the skin and just exfoliating like a couple times a week. And that's all I can really say. But I don't really know the science behind skincare, so take all of that with a grain of salt. I'm just gonna throw out that information. I'll link, or actually maybe just list it. I'll link it if I can. I'll link it in the description, the things that I would recommend. So now that that's out of the way, let's get repotting. Let's do Mag Chris Carla first, because this one is the one I have to root rot treat. I'm not worried about this plant, by the way, because like I can see tons of like juicy, healthy roots. There's just like some to cut off. And the more I use tree fern soil, the more I feel like I rely on that substrate to do a lot of the work for me. I honestly do think that the tree fern makes a huge difference in adding it to soil, because tree fern and anthuriums specifically, actually I could say that for philodendrons that I've tried growing in tree fern and tree fern soil, it does help plants root a lot faster. I don't know what it is about tree fern on a chemical level that triggers a lot of root growth. So while it's not like you need this substrate to grow anthuriums well, if you have access to both of these components, then I really think that it's worth a try. And I've been growing in tree fern soil since, I think the first time I used it on a plant was probably like almost a year ago. And I think it was maybe my Veitchii. It was all somewhere around like November-ish last year. And my Veitchii in particular was one of those anthuriums, and I think a lot of people have this experience with Veitchii, that it grows extremely slowly. You'll get like a leaf every 6 months or so. And I think my Veitchii had gotten to the point where like all the leaves on the plant were so old, and age does make leaves look kind of worse. They get a little banged up. And I was looking at this plant, like every single leaf on here is so old. It must have been like almost a year since my last leaf. So then I moved it to tree fern soil. I remember within a week or two, I started seeing all this like healthy active root growth, which I hadn't seen on that plant in so long, and I hadn't repotted it because it hadn't needed a repot in that it wasn't root bound or anything. So at that point it really impressed me, but I was still so into growing in pond that I didn't transition a lot of plants to that mix. And I don't even know what really spurred. Actually, you know what I think it is? Soil hasn't been my go-to substrate for so long. I think because when I first started getting really heavily into plants, I grew a lot of plants in soil, and I can look back at that time and remember the frustration I would feel that my plants weren't growing very well. People around me were able to like mature their plants a lot faster than I was. But now thinking back, I think a lot of it was due to my lack of understanding of light, and not actually giving my plants the light it needed. Like I thought the light was a lot better than it actually was. And I don't think the grow lights I was using at that time were very good quality. And then later, like what really jump started my ability to grow plants was the use of myco. So when I first started using myco, I was using Dino myco, and it did make a difference because there was one anthurium. I had one anthurium, I think it was like, I can't tell you definitively what the idea is, but I suspect it was like a Mag Verde looking, but very elongated. That plant, I had it in soil. It kept putting out leaves, but as soon as that leaf emerged, it would shrivel and die. And it did that about 5 times in a row. I think I saw the mention of mycorrhizal inoculants somewhere, just like an offhand comment. Sorry, my Ring camera. And then I went on Amazon and I just like found the first one that came up. And in Canada, mycorrhizal inoculants aren't as readily available, and there just aren't that many types available to us. So that was one of the few that was available. I don't know that Great White was available at the time, or maybe I just didn't see it. I ordered that and then I applied it to this plant, this Pappy Magverde thing, and it started to push a leaf, and that leaf fully formed. And the only thing I changed was added myco to the soil. So I was converted at that point. I also had other plants like anthuriums. I had my dark forgetii, I had my queen. At that point, those plants had been kind of dormant for maybe 4 months or so. Once I applied myco, they started growing again, like immediately. They just started pushing new leaves. So I think I not avoided, but I kind of wasn't gravitating towards soil as a substrate for so long because I was looking back at that era of my life of like not having very satisfying growth and not very healthy looking plants and just being really frustrated and just kind of like associating that with soil as well. But I honestly feel like since I started to do work with Lauren and doing work at the shop and helping her repot plants and stuff, and her go-to mix lately, at least this year, has been that coco coir, coco chunks, perlite, like a soilless soil mix. It started to become like very natural for me to just gravitate towards soil as the substrate of choice. So I think that's what really reminded me of tree fern soil as being a really positive substrate for anthuriums. And then I started using that on a few plants, and lo and behold, of course, the plants responded the same way they did last year. So I think that was kind of the story behind why I'm using this mix so heavily. So it's been probably like a few weeks, maybe up to a month, since I started talking about tree fern soil a lot on my channel. So I'm really curious for those of you who have tried it, and it's like nothing groundbreaking or revolutionary or just like anything new that like I invented. I would never suggest to you guys that I invented anything in plant care. But if any of you have tried it recently on an anthurium, let me know like how it's working for you. Because if anyone is like having a hard time with the substrate, that would make me want to look into that particular soil I was using. Because to be honest, I almost feel like that soil bag was possibly outdoor soil, and I don't actually, they don't list the components on it, like a lot of soil companies won't. So I would be curious to know what exactly is different about it. But my guess is that it doesn't really matter too much, so long as that soil isn't harboring some harmful bacteria or anything. And if it's working well for you, are you using myco? Are you not using myco? This one is done, by the way. I expect good things to happen. Oh, I need to save this. This is Amanda's little riddle for us when we were sent the plants. She wanted us to guess what it was. Don't feel like just because a particular grower uses any sort of product and you really admire the health of their plants that you have to use it, otherwise you are not going to be successful. I really recommend taking the time to understand what exactly it is that makes it beneficial, because a lot of the times it's not necessarily that particular product, but a characteristic of that product or something that makes the plant respond positively to it. Like, just for example, it's not necessarily the lack of drainage holes that causes root rot due to overwatering. It's the watering that causes root rot. It's not no drainage that causes nutrient burn. It's the over fertilization within no drainage and not flushing, or the difficulty in flushing, that causes nutrient burn. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you're watching this video and you're like, I don't even like anthuriums, thank you for staying so long. But at the same time, I want to say that I 100% can understand that people wouldn't like anthuriums for multiple reasons. So a lot of people have brought up the idea that like the hype of anthuriums really turns them off, and I can relate to that sentiment as well, because sometimes when people are hyping something up too much, it's almost like the inner part of me that says like, don't tell me what to do, just rejects the whole idea altogether. The other thing people say is like the prices turn them off, or that there are so many anthuriums and so many hybrids and variations and like an infinite combination of like hybrids that it turns them off because it's too overwhelming. Some people actually don't like hybrids in general, and they're like, I want a pure species or nothing at all. And I'm actually genuinely curious if you are one of those people. I'm curious as to why. Why are hybrids something that you don't like in this hobby? Because knowing that hybridization will often result in stronger plants, more resilient plants, I'm curious as to why hybrids would be very unattractive to people. Like hybrids as a general concept, not just like specific hybrids. I don't think there's any wrong answer when it comes to people's personal opinions and feelings on the hobby. So long as it doesn't harm other people. So if you feel a certain type of way about hybrids or anthuriums, I would love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, probably the sentiment surrounding anthuriums that I can relate to the most is that people are talking about it too much and you're sick of hearing about it. If that is the reason for you and I am part of the problem, then I'm sorry. But when I look back on my experience as a collector in the last few years, and I mean like these are the years of me like actively collecting plants and always looking for that next new addition to my collection, I will say that anthuriums have been the one genus that has spanned that entire time and I've never lost the love for. So I've been through phases where I was like heavily into Hoyas, or I was really into begonias, or I was really into, I had a cacti and succulent summer where I think me and Charmaine acquired probably like 20, 30. Some of them I still have. Actually, a lot of them I still have, but a lot of them are no longer with me. But never have I lost my love for anthuriums. Actually, I find anthuriums the hardest to let go when I purge plants. And I've been purging plants for 3 years now. So yeah, I can confidently say that anthuriums and me are kind of like going to be a long-term relationship. Whereas philodendrons for me, it was a really long relationship. And I think a lot of that has to do with my inability to grow them to maturity for quite a long time. And then once I was able to grow them really big, the big philodendrons like really upset me. Wait, I think one thing about philodendrons that I really don't appreciate is the EFN. And the bigger the plant and the more EFN it produces, the stickier it becomes. So I was like really tired of handling a plant and just feeling sticky for the rest of the day. Not to bash philodendrons or anything, but I just want to clarify that the reason why I talk about anthuriums so much on this channel is because that's what really gets me going. This one is also now done. I hope she's happy. I really hope she's happy. I think a lot of this damage has to do with like inconsistent watering and some drying out, maybe some cold. So this like humongous pot, what I like to do is sit it in a saucer like this. So this saucer's maybe like an inch, maybe an inch and a half tall. So what I can do is obviously it acts like a saucer so it catches runoff water. But if this substrate up here is not like ready for water yet, but I can see that there's roots down here that might be getting dry because of the leca, then I can simply just like pour some water into here. I've been really enjoying these saucers, but the only reason why I use these like wide ones, I would prefer something deeper, but I can't find takeout containers like that are wide and short. Me and Lauren were talking about this. Like there are certain wide deli cups that are just wide enough for this pot, but we can't find one to like purchase in bulk. So we've been like saving, like there's specific ones that Tropical sends with their plants. And it actually does fit this, but they also send a different size that doesn't fit. But yeah, that is a story that nobody asked for. Last plant is him, this guy. Like I said, I don't see any rot on this whatsoever. So I'm going to just like pull it out and just plop it into the glass container. I'm probably gonna pull off these little baby leaves just so I can sit it to at least like here in pond. And the reason I don't want to disrupt it too much is because this leaf is emerging out of it. For those of you wondering, I am also still working on the pond video. This time I'm actually working on it. Like if I had my little green notebook with me, I could show you. I have pages of notes in there. Prior to that, I was not actually like putting pen on paper, planning it. this kind of planny video, like the on topic video like this, not that I've been very on topic, but a video like this, I just need you to understand it takes a lot out of me. Like, I just don't want to talk about one thing for very long. So removing those leaves. Oh, sorry, baby leaves. You did nothing wrong. I just don't want to bury you in pond. I'm pretty surprised actually that so many people still want a pond video after so much time has passed, because way more informed people than me have talked about pond. So maybe I'll make it more of a chit-chatty video like this, because I can't tell you how difficult it is for me to stay on topic and keep it concise. Filling the gaps as usual. As usual, I don't have my great white with me here in the plant room, so I'm going to inoculate all these with great white right after I wrap filming. So forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but what I will do is just mix like the great white that I have is like in a little, looks like a spice shaker kind of thing. I just like tap it a couple of times, fill it with water. I like to see like a good amount of brown in the water, and then I immediately go and just water the root zone with that solution. And don't add any fertilizer at that point because it's not necessary while the plant establishes the relationships with the fungi. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here. I'm so tired. Last thing before I go, if you were wondering why I'm wearing the same thing as I did when I started this video, sorry, just fixing the camera angle. I'll tell you a little story. I put on this sweatshirt. I received this sweatshirt. A lot of you will recognize this little fella here. So I received this sweatshirt in the mail. Like, I purchased it and then I got it in the mail. I've been wearing it, and then I decided I'm gonna wear it for this week's video. Although the first part of the filming was so chaotic because I was like so behind schedule, and then like my food was here and I forgot to talk about it. So then I wore it again the next day to the shop, and I forgot to talk about it again. So here I am in the sweatshirt. I want to tell you about Mr. Gordon. This is from Charmaine's merch line, so I will obviously link it in the description. This is the one with no graphic on the back. All I wanted was Gordon. I named Gordon, and I told her that she had to call him Gordon, but I didn't really expect that she would put it right in the description of the item. But he's the no drainage mascot. He's a little pumpkin with, I think she said it was a Dean McDowell, but I see Gloriosum. And since pumpkins are gourds, I said he needed to be Gordon. And I think he is so cute. I bought the, I don't remember what it's called, but there's like a Gildan version of the sweatshirt, like the actual sweater. And there's like this version, which is like, I like the colors a lot more. So just in case you're on the fence about like which color to choose, because it took me so long to choose a color, this one is cement and I'm wearing size medium. So it's like just oversized enough for me, but it's not like baggy, although large probably could have worked well for me. And I will say this color, I feel like on camera it's showing pretty true to color. It is like the color of wet cement, not dry cement. It's freshly laid cement that you shouldn't walk on yet. It kind of has a bit of a warm tone to it, and the weight of it is not very heavy. So I will say it's not like super, super, super warm. It's not like that plushy material. It's more, I think, like a fall spring sweater. And I think it's like really perfect, really comfortable to wear inside. I don't get too hot in it. So that's hopefully helpful to anyone who hasn't bought the sweater because they just can't decide which one they want. I haven't washed it yet, but this print actually feels really good. The colors are really bright. Lines are super clean. If you don't have your Charmaine merch yet, I will link this particular sweater in the description, but obviously that will take you to the rest of her shop. Anyways, if you are still here at this point watching this video, thank you so, so much for watching. Next week's video, I can tell you right now, I don't know what it is yet, but it's not going to be this on topic. I do have a lot of plant chores to do, so I have a lot of propagations to do. Maybe I'll take you along for that. I also am thinking about what I want to do for December, because last year I did not Vlogmas, but I did 2 videos a week and vlogged more, like had more non-planty stuff. I'm not sure what I want to do this year, but if you have any suggestions for the Christmas season, which I know around that time, not a lot of people are watching planty YouTube and they're not really like taking care of their plants, because I get it. I love Christmas. I probably wouldn't be paying that much attention to my plants either. I have asked you guys for so many things to leave in the comments. I'm so sorry. I'm seriously gonna go now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.